So the problem that we have with Russia's aggression against Ukraine is that it's not only an aggression against another country, it's an aggression against the foundational principles of the international system. Multilateralism, something that we both believe in and invest in. The United Nations Charter, which puts at its heart the sovereignty and independence of nations. And it was created in large part to try to, after 2 world wars, to make sure that there wasn't another one. And the basic principles that it established were designed to do that. But if we allow a big country to bully a smaller one, to simply invade it and take its territory, then it's going to be open season, not just in Europe, but around the world. And it will have repercussions here and repercussions everywhere. We don't see conflict anywhere. We did not want the Russian aggression against Ukraine. We tried very hard to, diplomatically, to ward it off, because that's not how we want to be spending our time. And similarly, the reaction now by China with regard to Taiwan and the military actions it's taken, allegedly in response to the peaceful visit of a member of our Congress, that too doesn't help things. Nor does the fact that China has said it's ceasing cooperation with the United States on dealing with climate change. That's not punishing the United States. That's punishing the entire world, and especially the developing world.
It's one of the purposes of our trip, to show the world the success of the people of Taiwan, their courage to change their own country to become more democratic.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is your super friendly host AJ, calling from London yet again. I am back, tanned, refreshed, re-energized, ready to go, back to work, back to all geopolitics events. I'm really raring to go. I have missed you guys, so I'm going to start making videos for you guys again, trying to entertain you, keep you up to the date with the latest news, views, give you my rants and raves. I'm ready to do all of that. So before I do, I just want to say thank you for all of my supporters. Thank you for everyone that's been supporting me while I was away, and all the nice messages. 99% of you have been absolutely amazing, and I know you are here because you like me, you like my views, and obviously we don't, completely agree 100%, but, we are what we are as human beings. You can't agree with someone 100% of the time. Even if you agree with someone most of the time, that's enough to be friends, and that's enough to get along. And most of you guys have been along with my journey from the beginning, so I really appreciate it. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about the 10 consequences that China is taking due to Pelosi's visit to the Taiwan island. I'm going to be going through each of those consequences in detail, one by one. I hope you enjoyed the video clips I made in the beginning of the video, one with Blinken. And it's almost laughable, the double standards and the hypocrisy that he's talking about. The fact that he doesn't mention that the United States invaded Iraq, Afghanistan. They still have troops in Syria. Their allies like Israel is still invading Palestine's West Bank. Things like that. It's just pure hypocrisy. It's pure BS coming out of Blinken's mouth. It's almost laughable, to be honest. And the fact that he's mentioning climate change in his speech, means that US is really hurting from China's sanctions against the US in regards to climate change, and I'm going to be discussing that in good detail. And the fact that he mentioned it in his speech usually means that USA is hurting, because if USA was not hurting, they would not even mention it at all. So I'm going to go through each of those consequences China has taken due to that trip. And the second clip, obviously, with Pelosi mentioning that Taiwan is a country, and that probably, is basically pissing off all the Chinese in the world, and it just makes the matter even worse. The fact that she landed in Taiwan, and the fact that she's saying that Taiwan is a country, it's just no wonder the Chinese people are so angry. So I'm gonna go through each of those consequences one by one. So before I start the main content of the video, which will start around the 10-minute mark, so if you don't want to hear me rant and rave and talk gibberish, then you're welcome to move to the 10-minute mark, and the actual program will start from there. I just want to talk a few things and get off my chest. Basically, if you can subscribe to the channel, that will be really helpful, or you can kind of join my Patreon or buy me a coffee. Anything that can help promote the channel or help me as a channel to grow, that'll be really appreciative. 99% of you have been absolutely great. I have about 24k subscribers. I'm really happy with you guys. 99% of you have been sending me amazing messages to me on my holiday. However, and this is a big however, I was making some videos while I was on holiday, and I update you guys because I miss you guys. Plus, I'm letting you know that I'm safe, I'm well, there's nothing to worry about. Because sometimes when people go off social media for about a week or so, obviously people start getting worried. And the same thing like Gonzalo Lira, when he went missing, people start getting worried. So it's me updating you guys, letting you know I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm having a good time. But there are 1% of my followers who are such haters, man, real haters. I mean, look at this guy, Google Chop at the end, right at the bottom. He messaged me saying unsubscribed. I mean, come on, man. Such haters in this world. I mean, everyone's allowed to have a holiday, right? Everyone's allowed to have a bit of a break and stuff. I mean, I just need to ask people out there, if you want to unsubscribe, that's fine to do so. It's obviously a democracy. Everyone's fine to unsubscribe or subscribe. But I don't understand the need to actually say unsubscribed on the comment section. Like, it's there to really hurt me. It's like, if you want to unsubscribe, it's fine. But you type in a message saying unsubscribed in your comment section, that's like asking for attention. And I'm just thinking, what kind of human being does that? If anyone can explain to me the thought process behind it, then I'm happy to listen. But I'm not really worried, to be honest, because I'll be honest with you guys. I mean, I'm not really a big channel. I've only got like 24k followers, subscribers, and I'm not really desperate for followers, to be honest. I mean, look at all of these people getting banned left, right and center. You have people like The Dive, Alex, and people getting banned from YouTube, people getting demonetized in YouTube, and then YouTube just strikes you down, and that's it. Your income is gone. And a lot of people, would be really severely impacted if that was the case. Luckily for me, I'm still working, so YouTube income is not really a matter for me. I don't really care, to be honest, how many subscribers I get, because I'm happy to be under the radar for many reasons. Number one, I don't want to be too much on the radar, if that makes sense, because I'm actually a civil servant, so I don't want my name to be too much out there. So I'm happy to be like talking about geopolitics stuff under the radar. It's not a problem for me. But once I become a bit over the radar, when I'm talking about 100k subscribers or something, then I know for a fact that they would probably come after me. So I'm not really worried about subscribers. If you guys like my channel, you want to subscribe, I'm really happy if you do so. But if you don't want to do it, it really doesn't matter to me. I'm not really looking for 100k 200k subscribers, to be honest. And I'll probably never get there. I mean, my channel is a geopolitics channel, and I give a lot of strong opinions which may rub people up the wrong way. So those of you who know me very well would know that I just switch on the microphone and I just talk, and you can guarantee that everything I say is genuine. It all comes from the heart. I don't plan on what I'm going to say. Everything comes from the heart. It's 100% genuine. I might say the wrong thing here and there, so please forgive me. But you got to understand, this is all unfiltered, unedited, uncut. So you are basically getting the director's cut when I speak. Anyway, friends, that's enough ranting for now. So let's carry on with the show. So you can see China released this article where they have basically put in all of the countermeasures they are doing against the US, all of the sanctions they're placing against the US. And I'm going to go through these one by one. And I'll start with this one first. PLA extends Taiwan encirclement exercises drills, and they will not stop until reunification. So number one action they are taking is basically huge military drills happening in and around the Taiwan island. They have literally blockaded the whole island, where it's become impossible for planes to fly in and out of Taiwan, for ships to go in and out of Taiwan, because all of these military drills happening all around the island. So it's really bad news for the Taiwan island. So obviously they're not getting imports and exports coming in. Huge issues causing for the Taiwanese. There's a lot of demonstrations in Taiwan as well. So a lot of Western media sources will not cover the fact that Nancy Pelosi was not welcome in Taiwan. There's a lot of people demonstrating against her visit. There were people within the party, the DPP party, who did not want her to visit Taiwan as well. And I'm seeing a lot of articles in the Chinese media, and I'm not sure if this was actually covered by any Western sources or even some Western bloggers. I couldn't really see it anywhere, so I'm going to just tell you how it went. So basically the story was the fact that Pelosi was a bit of a coward, so she did not put Taiwan in her itinerary. She basically said she's going to visit Seoul and Japan, and she did not say she's going to visit Taiwan, so she lied. So she's a liar, number one, and a coward. Number two, while she was heading towards the island of Taiwan, her invitation got cancelled, which means the Taiwanese authority actually withdrew her invitation in the last minutes because they did not want, to anger China. Because you have to think about how the Taiwanese are going to be affected from all of this. And with all of this stuff that's happening around the island, with all these drills and stuff, people don't want this. People don't want to anger the Chinese, because the Chinese are the biggest trading partner for Taiwan. 80% of the trade goes through China. So you don't want to go angering China. Plus, look at all of these immediate actions Pelosi has caused by her trip, and it's totally unnecessary. I mean, is there a reason for her to be in Taiwan? No reason at all whatsoever. None. She's achieved nothing from this trip except piss off the Chinese. Nothing. So obviously her invitation got cancelled, but guess what? She went there anyway. And obviously the Taiwanese president put something, a medal of honor or something around her shoulders, and said, "Oh, you're so brave coming here, blah blah blah." And there was big signs in the Taiwan Tower saying "Welcome to Taiwan." And I don't know about you guys, but when she visited, is this guy Lloyd Austin? I mean, you can see this this guy on the right of Nancy Pelosi looks a bit like Lloyd Austin. So if that was Lloyd Austin, then it shows that, you know, a real big delegation. You know, Lloyd Austin is a defense secretary, and he's a real big player in the Biden administration. So it's all lies, the fact that they said that Nancy Pelosi is basically traveling on her own accord and stuff like that. And if you remember one of my videos I did before I went on holiday, I saw a lot of Chinese transcripts basically about the phone call between President Xi and Biden at the time. And Biden basically said, look, Nancy Pelosi is visiting Taiwan. It's got nothing to do with me. I told her not to go, but, you know, obviously she's insisting on going. I can't stop her. We still support the one China policy, blah, blah, blah. And President Xi basically laid onto him. He was so angry. He literally laid onto Biden at the time. And he said to him in those Chinese transcripts I saw, he said, you know what kind of president are you? You're very weak. You must be a real shitty president if you can't control your staff. You know, obviously in a diplomatic way. I'm not saying he used the word shitty or anything. He said it probably in a diplomatic way that, you know, you're not a good president if if you can't control your staff. And Pelosi is number 3 in the Biden admin's hierarchy. So if Biden has a car accident, if Kamala has a car accident, then, you know, she's next in line in the throne to be president. So she is a big time player. And the fact that, you know, she went to Taiwan secretly and behind all of these aircraft carriers and all of these planes, all of these American military that was escorting her, you know, probably spent billions just on getting her into Taiwan and getting her out of Taiwan safely. You know, imagine the amount of money for one person. You don't even do that for the president, let alone, you know, Nancy Pelosi. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. So this is the thing. I saw a lot of transcripts, and, you know, basically President Xi was sitting with all of his generals and defense people, and they can see Pelosi's plane basically using satellites. They can track the plane. At any point they could have shot it down, any point, because they knew exactly which plane she was on. They could see the trajectory. They could have easily shot it down. But the PLA or the Chinese government never ever said they're going to shoot the plane down. Never. You know, these are basically words coming out of the West. These are words coming out of, you know, Chinese papers as well. But everybody knows, you know, the Chinese government. It's not something that the Chinese government would do. They're not advocating for war or violence. You know, they could have easily shot it down, but they did not. They chose peace. They want to, you know, reunify with Taiwan in a peaceful manner. And they're not going to fall into the trap the US has placed on them. So I'm glad that they didn't do anything. So the actions they are going to be taking are basically actions economically and also in other ways as well, which is going to hurt US in the long term. The short term, you know, US basically used Nancy Pelosi as a pawn, used her as a martyr. So basically, if her planes get shot down, and they could have used her as a martyr, saying, "Oh my God, they killed our Pelosi. Let's go to war." This poor fashionable granny would have been killed, and for what? And for what? You know, if they could have easily shot the plane down, but they did not. So she landed. She obviously went to Taiwan, even though she wasn't invited. Her invitation got cancelled last minute. She still forced her way in. It's almost like somebody. It's almost like a friend that you invite, and then you cancel the invitation, but they turn up anyway outside your house, and you think, "Oh God, you know, I told them not to come," and there they are outside their house. So obviously you have to let them in. So this is what's happened basically. She went to Taiwan all of her own accord. She even called Taiwan a country to piss off the Chinese even more. So she caused a lot of damage. I know a lot of Western people and a lot of Western papers were egging China to shoot down Pelosi's plane. And when Pelosi's plane did not get shot down, they were calling China paper tiger, and they were calling China weak. I don't think so. It takes a big person to avoid a confrontation. Like my old wise friend told me once, to be a big person, you must be big enough to walk away from a fight rather than get into a fight. So for them not to shoot the plane down showed China to be the adult in the room. Basically, they avoided World War III, and they didn't say they're going to shoot the plane down. They did not say they're going to kill Pelosi and start World War III. They didn't say anything like that. These were just Western papers talking. So I saw this article as well that former President Trump was calling Nancy Pelosi crazy, and he basically said he's giving Beijing an excuse to escalate things over Taiwan. So I don't know what he's talking about. This guy is crazy himself. It takes one to know one. And, this guy was basically completely going crazy over China when he was president. And he was obviously being really racist. He was taking things to the next level. He was talking about coronavirus. He was calling it the Kung flu, and he was calling it China virus. He was being completely racist towards the Chinese people. He was the main reason why there was so much anti-Chinese violence going on around the world, and he escalated things to a much higher level than anything what Pelosi did. Pelosi basically is taking advantage of what he started, basically. So what is US gonna do? So US is basically gonna be obviously doing their own military drills. And I saw this article and I just thought, this is kind of interesting. US is basically going to be doing joint drills with India and focus on high altitude warfare. And this basically is going to be near the Chinese border, where there's obviously been border skirmishes between India and China. So it looks like Washington is basically finding ways to piss off the Chinese, and they see India as another pawn, and they're going to start doing joint military training drills with India to piss off the Chinese even more. So word on India, basically, I mean, come on guys. I have a channel and I know exactly, I have a lot of Indian listeners out there, and most of you Indian guys and women are very intelligent, your geopolitics very well, but there seems to be a minority of you who are very, very short-sighted, also very, very narrow-minded as well, because I see in my comment section that fact that these narrow-minded Indian guys are very, very adamant that all of these Western lies about Russia are purely lies, fabrication, propaganda. They will not believe any of the lies against Russia. However, when it comes to China, they believe everything. And I just don't get it. I just don't understand why this such anti-Chinese, not only hate, but also lack of crystal clear thinking and lack of clarity, lack of critical thinking. And how can you believe Western lies when it comes to China, but don't believe any Western lies when it comes to Russia? And I know there is a huge population of Indians still very, very anti-Chinese, and I know the reasons why, because of the border issues and stuff, but you can't let these things cloud your judgment when it comes to geopolitics. With geopolitics, you got to have an open mind, a clear mind, and think rationally and think outside the box. The fact that you're going into bed with the demon, which is the United States, India seems to be a country which is batting on the both sides. On one side, they are with the US, blah, 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 when it comes to China. But when it comes to Russia, they are completely against the US. They're completely going the other way. So India seems to be a country that's batting on the both sides. It doesn't know which direction to go to. So sometimes it's in bed with the US, sometimes it's not. and it needs to choose basically what it wants to do, because doing these kind of switcheroo things, it's just not going to win you any friends in the long term. Not many countries will trust you because they know you're batting on both sides, and you need to be really, really careful, especially when dealing with USA, because they're not the friends that you think they are, and they are not gonna lead you to the right paths. And what I remember when Kissinger once said that to be enemies with the US is very dangerous, but to be friends with the US is very, very fatal. So the Indians that kind of are looking to get in line with the US when it comes to Quad, when it comes to all of these military anti-Chinese stuff that they're doing, you just really need to take a step back and actually look at what consequences this could cause. So you can see also China's lack of response to Pelosi's visit is not weakness, it's strategy. And I completely agree with that, because shooting down the plane would have been very, very stupid, would have showed the Chinese to be very aggressive and weak, and would have started World War III, would have given Americans an excuse to start, bombing the Chinese and starting World War III. So you don't want that. So, the Chinese are very, very clever when it comes to foreign policy. They look at the long term. They don't fall into US's trap when it comes to something like stupid as this. So they are looking at the long term, and they are basically taking countermeasures, but in their own way. So Wang Yi basically has said why the Chinese thinks Pelosi went to Taiwan. It's for many, many reasons. Number one, obviously, her husband has got interest in TSMC, semiconductors. He's got a lot of shares and stuff as well. So she wanted to kind of safeguard that first, I guess. But also the fact that he said that there are signs the United States is trying to repeat its old tricks. The diplomat clarified that Washington has a history of creating a problem first and then using it to realize its own strategic plans elsewhere in the world. So basically what Wang Yi is trying to say is US is basically trying to cause a problem in the region, and then US is basically trying to give a solution to that problem. So this is basically calls for things like NATO expansion. So they are going to say, China is a problem, China is an enemy, we need an Asian NATO, who's with us? And then you got Blinken saying, where with you Philippines, where with you Japan, where with you South Korea? But they know for a fact that if there was a war, with the Chinese, the first people that would be killed are going to be the South Koreans, the Japanese, and the Philippines if they are involved in this war. And the Americans are very good at proxy wars, like they're doing with Ukraine. They will fight Russia to the last Ukrainian. Same way they will fight the Chinese to the last Japanese. They will fight them to the last South Korean. They will fight them to the last Filipino. They will fight them to the last Australian. And the Americans will be sitting at the back, sending long-range weapons, submarines and stuff, while they are watching all of these Japanese, Australians and Filipino, South Koreans being killed. Americans will be sitting back and laughing, and after all of that mayhem, they'll probably just walk away, think, what, let's get out there and let's look for the next conflict, probably going to be Iran or something. So I also want to finally mention that the CIA strategy towards China, they are basically putting China as number one enemy, and the CIA shifting focus to great power competition with China means that the money and resources will be increasingly shifted away from counter-terrorism. The spy agency's second highest ranking officer reportedly told leaders of the CT branch. So a lot of people don't realize this, but I was actually on the next train when the London bombings happened. So I was on the second train, so I was very, very lucky to get away with my life. However, I was stuck on the train underground for hours until I had to basically walk along the track to get out the train along with the rest of the people. So that was quite scary at the time. So I'm a big believer in, counter-terrorism operations. Terrorism is a problem in this world. And whatever your background is and whatever you believe in, whatever your views are on terrorism, I just do not believe it's right to target civilians. I never ever believe in that. I would never condone that in any way. And it is very scary. Like I said, I was on that train, the second train, just behind it. So it's very, very scary at the time, and I just don't condone that kind of behavior on any civilian, to be honest. Number 2, trade with Russia, Iran increases. So you can see China exports to Russia has been booming, and it's returned to near pre-war highs. And as you know, a lot of Western businesses have moved out of Russia or stopped trading with Russia, which means a lot of Chinese businesses have moved in and started trading with Russia. And there's a lot of train links linking Russia and China, and many links are being built as we speak. There's huge amounts of infrastructure spending on both sides to link up both countries. And they share a huge border together, and why not? Russia has all of the raw materials that China needs, and China has got all of the manpower and technology. So they make a good team, to be honest. And one of the consequences that this trip has caused, Pelosi's trip, is basically strengthen the relationship between China and Russia. So China has realized that America cannot be trusted, and America always goes back on its word. The fact that they promised the one China policy, and the fact that they're playing all of these games with China and keep breaking the one China policy, keep sending arms to Taiwan, and pushing these separatists and calling Taiwan a country. All of these acts, it just shows that China cannot trust the USA anymore. So China basically has realized that USA is not a friend, it cannot be trusted. So what China is doing is basically increasing its friendship with Russia, increasing its friendship with countries such as Iran and other friendly countries as well. So, North Korea, and most of the ASEAN countries are very good friends with China, Indonesia especially, and Vietnam as well. Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos. There's many countries who are very, very friendly terms with China, plus the Central Asian countries like Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan. A lot of these countries are very, very friendly with China. They've got very good BRI links, linking their countries to China. And China's BRI is linking over 150 countries to China. So China is building very, very good links. It's got very good links in Middle East, very good links in Africa. So China has a lot of friends, and China's going to be basically focusing on those countries which are friendly to China, who believe in the one China policy, who are not backstabbing them like the USA have done. And China have finally realized that this Pelosi's trip means it's game on between China and America. They know that America basically cannot be trusted, and if there was a war along the Taiwanese Strait, they are pretty sure that USA will get involved, and China will be now making sure, number one, it makes huge amounts of trade links with its neighbors. So if there is any sort of trade embargo happening during a war in the Taiwanese Strait, they will make sure they get all of the raw materials they need from countries such as Russia, from countries such as Iran, and other countries in Central Asia, Africa, Middle East, for example. It doesn't have to go by sea, it can be going by land, which is one of the reasons they built the BRI. So China is making plans. They are also de-dollarizing as well, and they're doing a lot of things to basically now accelerate the decoupling from the United States, because they know USA cannot be trusted, and they will basically help Russia now with Ukraine. They will send weapons to Iran. They will help North Korea economically, send weapons to North Korea as well. And imagine China helping North Korea build nuclear subs or submarines. The North Korea will be very, very dangerous country to deal with. And imagine if China gives that technology to Iran as well. So that will be a big worry for the United States. But you know what? United States has done this to themselves, and they are basically seeing a multipolar world being created, mainly down to America's actions. And also, what other country is going to trust America? I mean, America, everywhere they go, they cause mayhem and wars and destruction. You know, they've completely destroyed the Middle East. You know, they've literally, you know, attacked half of the Middle East, killed millions of people in Iraq, millions in Afghanistan. They're causing so much mayhem in Syria, Libya. You know, everywhere USA goes, they cause so much destruction. So what other country is going to trust, the United States? And I can tell you for a fact, a lot of countries actually don't like the United States, but they're forced to follow their rules-based order because either they're very poor and they need America's help when it comes to money, IMF loans and funding. So they're forced to be friends with America because of the money. So it's almost like if you have a barbecue party and you're paying all of your friends to turn up to your own barbecue party. You call all your friends and say, you know what, mate, come to my barbecue, I'll pay you £500. Come to my barbecue, I'll give you 1,000. And they all come down for the barbecue and you pay them all, here's the money, thanks for coming to my barbecue. And then next week you call them up all again and they said, hi guys, can you come to my barbecue again? This time I've got no money left, but I still want you to come. You'll see that you'll have nobody turning up to your barbecue because the only reason they turned up to your barbecue is because they wanted money and free food. Number 3, trade restrictions. So what China has done, they've placed a lot of trade restrictions on Taiwan itself. Lots of Taiwanese citrus fish have been targeted. But one of the main things that they've targeted is sand. And not many people know this, but sand, silicon especially, is mainly used for semiconductors. And it's a special kind of silicon. You're not going to get it from the desert. These are special sand you need to get from the ocean floor. And I don't know if many realize, but there is a shortage of sand in this world. A lot of countries have stopped exporting sand. Countries like Indonesia, Vietnam, a lot of ASEAN countries have stopped, exporting sand because it's a very limited resource, and sand is actually running out in Earth because this is a special kind of sand which gives you very good amounts of silicon in it, and also you need it for construction as well. So there's a very much shortage of sand around in this world, and one of the places that has got most of the sand is China. So Taiwan gets a lot of the sand from China. They get a lot of water from China. They get a lot of raw materials from China. So what China is saying now is they're not going to be sending any sand to Taiwan. And this is the big problem, because where else are they going to get it from? Because most of the other ASEAN countries are not getting it, are not selling it either. So this is a major problem for semiconductors, especially TSMC, and it's sending a huge message to Taiwan as well. But China has to be very careful as well, because a lot of Chinese companies still buy chips from TSMC. So I think China has to be very careful how it deals with TSMC. You also have to realize TSMC is having other issues as well. For example, it can't get neon and other certain gases and certain raw materials from Ukraine anymore. Ukraine and Russia are one of the biggest neon producers in the world, and so Taiwan has not been getting any of them. And Taiwan is actually in a list of unfriendly places that Russia is not selling stuff to as well. So. And trust me, China is not a country to mess around with when it comes to trade. And these are the figures that came out last month. You can see they have made over 101 billion for the month of July. And that's a huge record. For 1 month, they made 100 billion in terms of trade surplus. And you can see for the first time it surpassed the 100 billion threshold. By comparison, the trade surplus in July 2021 last year was only 56.6 billion. So it's almost doubled. You can see it's almost doubled in 1 year, the trade surplus. So China is not a country to mess around with when it comes to trade. It's a huge market there, and they're not messing around. So if you think about it, 101 billion for the month of July. And if they keep this up, imagine how much money they would make in a year. Over $1 trillion. 100 billion per month of trade surplus. And you got 12 months a year. You can easily make over 1 trillion, 1.2 trillion just in exports or in trade surplus alone. Imagine what China can do with all that money. Obviously most of it will go to infrastructure. Most of it also will go into the military as well. So China has got huge amounts of money to play with. And, you can't mess around with China when it comes to exports and imports. And people that think that they can, basically sanction China in terms of the exports. You cannot sanction China because the whole world needs these goods that China is producing. This is the reason why inflation is kept so low around the world, because they get cheap goods from China. If it wasn't for cheap goods in China, imagine an iPhone. Forget it ever gets created in China. Say the iPhone gets created in Britain. Can you imagine the costs of producing an iPhone in Great Britain? It will be 10 times more expensive. You got to spend money on land, which is very expensive in England. You got to pay people a good salary, which is 10 times more expensive than they pay in China. Then you got to pay all of these benefits on top as well, and taxes and all sorts of stuff. Then you got to pay for raw materials, which you have to get from China, by the way. You got to ship them all the way from China, which is going to cost you money. All of these stuff, it's going to cost any companies moving away from China 10 times as much. And so this is why a lot of Western countries export their manufacturing to China, because it's cheap. Plus also you have to look at climate change as well, global warming. If you start manufacturing stuff at home, not only is it expensive, but also it's bad for the environment. So these factories, they need power. So you're going to have to fire up your coal factories and stuff like that and give them power. And you cannot do that, in this day and age. You cannot start opening up all of these coal factories and producing more pollution. It's much easier to export your manufacturing to China. And this is why China is one of the biggest manufacturing places in the world, because they are the factory of the world. They are producing goods. These Western countries don't need to think about the high costs of making products there. They don't need to think about the pollution. They don't need to think about climate change, global warming. They basically export all of that to China. So if you cut China out of this equation, which other country is going to do it? You might say, oh, there's India as well. India does not have the supply chain. India does not have the raw materials. India, there's a lot of problems with India as well. And plus, China has got one of the largest renewable sources in the world as well. It's got huge amounts of solar, wind, nuclear, hydroelectric, hydropower. China's got the BRI. There's trains going from China to Europe, very, very fast. India does not have all of that yet. And if you want to, produce factories in India, which you can, I'm not saying you can't, you're going to have to build all of that infrastructure, and, you've got to think about the environment as well. And, there's a lot of problems in India, and I just don't think India has the time or the effort to do that. China has taken 50 years to produce all of this stuff. 50 years. So are you, as a Western company, going to wait 50 years until India has the same sort of infrastructure as China does? Because India will have to build its own BRIs, will have to build its own infrastructure, own supply chains. And plus, you got to think about the environment as well. You got to do that all, looking at the carbon footprint. They can't be building up all sorts of coal power stations to power up these factories. I just don't think it's this is the time to do it when there's a green transition happening. So, there's still a lot of problems, and moving away from China will cause a lot of problems as well. But you know what? A lot of Western companies are not going to look at that. Every single company wants profit. They don't really care about geopolitics. They want to make money. And, China is a place to make money, because not only do you get to create and manufacture goods very cheap, but you also got 1.4 billion people to sell your goods to. For example, Apple iPhone, for example, even though they make it in China very cheap, they got a market of 1.4 billion people they can sell it to afterwards as well. So it makes perfect business sense to work in China and to have your business in China. So if Americans think, or the US think, that they can decouple from China very easily, it's not going to happen. Definitely not going to happen overnight. Number 4, decouple from USA. So one of the other consequences that's happening is there's a big Chinese decouple going on behind the scenes from the United States. And one of the examples is battery maker CATL is reportedly putting US factory plans on hold. And not only CATL, but many other Chinese companies are basically putting all of the investment into USA, either pulling them out or putting it on hold. And this is really, really bad news for Biden and their administration, because CATL is one of the world's largest battery maker, and for them not to have a US factory means companies like Ford and other US car makers cannot use their batteries, and they're going to have to get batteries from China, and the world knows that most of the lithium, cobalt, sodium, most of the car manufacturing battery raw materials is in China itself, or they own most of these mines that do it. They have a lot of mines in Africa, which China basically gets a lot of the raw materials from. They get a lot of stuff from China itself. They get a lot of stuff from Russia. So a lot of the stuff, raw materials wise, China has got 80 or 90% of the world's rare earths as well. Plus, don't forget, China also has most of the materials which make solar panels, and a lot of the wind turbines need rare earth minerals as well. And China controls all of that. And Biden has recently approved, Congress has recently approved a $500 billion bill for renewable energy stuff, but they will need China's help for this, because China is the biggest producer of renewables, solar panels, wind turbines, etc. So if they want to get that stuff cheap, they're going to have to work with China and get it from China. Otherwise, if they source it all in America only, then there's going to be huge cost implications to that. So there's a story here that Apple basically has asked suppliers to ensure that shipments from Taiwan to China comply with Beijing's custom regulations to avoid being subject to scrutiny. Nikkei reported on Friday this includes a requirement for products to be labeled made in Taiwan, China. So you're going to have a lot of products that say made in Taiwan, China, as opposed to made in Taiwan. Because I remember growing up in the 80s and 90s, and I used to remember seeing a lot of electronics used to say made in Taiwan, made in Taiwan. So a lot of people in the West immediately, think that Taiwan is a country or is not really part of China. So this basically will change all of that. And, obviously back then, not many people know much about geopolitics and stuff, so obviously they will think that. But nowadays, people are more clued on, and something like this will basically make them realize that Taiwan is a part of China and it's not really a separate country. So Apple is basically trying to do its best to keep the Chinese government happy. However, there is a rollout iPhone 14 delay because of geopolitics issues. Many issues really. First of all, TSMC is very slow in making chips because they are lacking in resources. Obviously sand coming from China, obviously neon coming from Russia and Ukraine, and there's other geopolitics issues, which means there's a huge chip shortage as well. So TSMC is basically under very, very severe stress to produce the chips, as well as other geopolitics issues as well. And this is causing iPhone 14 to be rolled out, delayed as well. And so, yeah, they can't really help matters. But I think, American companies in China have to be very, very careful. And I know a lot of companies are basically walking along a fine line. They're trying to keep the Chinese happy. They're trying to basically keep the business from, going in China, because they have a 1.4 billion, people business there. But there are a few American and European companies who are basically, walking along the tightrope. Some of them cross the tightrope the other way. For example, H&M basically put the statement on their website saying that they don't source cotton from Xinjiang, which caused a big boycott of H&M, as well as Nike and many other US and European companies which decided to go along the political route. So a lot of Chinese people, netizens as well, did not like that, and they boycotted these products. Which is not good, because these companies have not been making much money in China because of it. So if you're going to anger the Chinese, make sure you don't get into politics, and basically you're looking at your business is being shut down in China if you do so. So companies have to basically walk a very fine line between running a business or talking politics. So as a summary, Chinese companies are very, very careful to move into the American market, because they feel that their assets will be taken away if there was a war in the Taiwanese Strait, for example. So they're very, very careful about investing in the United States, investing in Europe, because of what happened with Russia, because the Americans or the Europeans can seize these assets anytime they choose. So a lot of Chinese companies are very, very careful moving into that market. They do not really need to move into United States or Europe. They have a big enough market in ASEAN. They have a big enough market in Asia, Middle East, Africa, China itself with 1.4 billion people. There's a market in India, Russia even. So, trust me when I say Chinese companies right now, they don't really care about the American market anymore. It's all about consumption, and they're all internal consumption. And that was in the 5-year plan recently. They want to basically support their 1.4 billion people first and foremost, then think about exporting stuff to United States and Europe. And Chinese have seen what actions they have taken against Russia, and right now they are safeguarding their companies and their investments and assets because of it. However, the other way around is there's a lot of European and American companies working in China, and China is not Russia. They cannot afford to leave the Chinese market, because a lot of companies, top companies, let's give Apple as an example. If Apple or Tesla, for example, were to move out of China because of geopolitics, or because they're asked to leave, if there was a war of the Taiwanese Strait, for example, imagine the amount of business they would lose. These companies would go bankrupt overnight. The Chinese market is a huge profit maker for them, not only them but many American companies. So I don't think that American companies will move out China that easily. If they do, there is a huge profit margin that's going to be sliced in half or even more. So count the Chinese off at your peril, and I just don't think it's easy for Americans to decouple from China. However, it is quite easy for China to decouple from America. Number 5, China will speed up its military build-up. So I saw this on the Daily Telegraph the other day. This was written by Con Coughlin. China is too weak to invade Taiwan successfully. So he wrote this article, and he basically called Beijing as a paper tiger. This is because China did not shoot Pelosi's plane down, so because of that, they're calling China. He's calling China as a basically paper tiger, and he wrote this article, saying how much of a paper tiger China is and stuff like that. So this guy has literally no clue, but it's not just him, it's basically most of the West who thought like that. And I saw a lot of articles this comes in the Times, saying China talks tough on Taiwan, but an invasion would be harder than it looks. And then you have this from the Sun: China needs 2 million soldiers to invade Taiwan and could be devastated, just like Putin's failing Russians in Ukraine. The Sun thinks Russia is still failing in Ukraine. I mean, this is how dumb these reporters are in UK, and I haven't even looked at American papers. I mainly look at British papers, and every single British paper is pretty much the same. They follow all the same narrative, the fact that China is weak and America and the West is strong. Don't forget, a year ago, before Russia went into Ukraine, they were saying, Ukraine should join NATO. Russia is too weak to do anything. We can push the Russians around. Ukrainians don't need to sign any Minsk agreements. Russia's, what they're going to do? They can't do anything. And look at Russia now. And it's the same way they basically think China is a paper tiger. Let me tell you something. China is not a paper tiger. It's not even a paper dragon. I mean, I have, lived in China, and I have been following China for years, and I have seen their military, what it is now compared to what it was like 10 years ago. You have to think about the Korean War, where, the Chinese helped drive away the Americans from North Korea, and then you have the Vietnam War where the Chinese got involved and they drove out the Americans from there as well. And at that time, Chinese didn't have any technological weapons, or didn't have much of an air force. But look at China now compared to what it was then. They are much, much more stronger now. They have an air force, they have a navy, they have a huge missile force, and they are building their nuclear weapons program to about 1,000 bombs by 2030. And these are going to be hypersonic bombs. And even 1,000 hypersonic bombs, this is more than a match than compared to the 6,000 American nuclear bombs they have, which are going to be standard nuclear weapons. But 1,000 hypersonic bombs, America does not have any counter to that. They cannot stop a hypersonic weapon. There's no weapon on earth that can stop it. So 1,000 nuclear bombs is enough to completely wipe out America if they wanted to. So I'm not saying let's go for nuclear apocalypse. That's definitely not what I'm saying. I'm saying that China is a country that can defend itself, and they are definitely not a paper tiger. And I think the West has completely got it wrong with China. If there was a military action, China is not going to go through the beaches. And you can see from the first clip in the beginning of the video how Taiwanese troops were basically putting barricades on the beach and things like that. That's not going to stop any Chinese hypersonic missiles, is it? It's absolutely ridiculous. You can see dogs walking past and villagers walking past those barricades. It's absolutely hilarious how they think they can stop the Chinese with those puny things. Might as well even not bother putting them in. I mean, I've said in a previous video, I'll probably try and give you a link to it at some point, but I basically gave a very good account on how China would take back Taiwan, and basically how they would do it is, they would use cyber attacks, they would use critical attacks on infrastructure and military installations all around Taiwan. And don't forget, China has got very, very good satellites. They know exactly the Taiwanese island inside out. They know where all of the military installations are, military headquarters are, the government headquarters, government buildings. They know exactly everything. So they're going to be going through cyber attacks. They're going to be hitting these installations. They will be surgically taking them out. They will be using drones. They will be taking out all of the important facilities all around Taiwan first. They've got, Type 71 helicopter landing carriers. They got 3 aircraft carriers, fourth which will be in action very soon. So you can see that they'll be using a lot of planes, helicopters to land in and around Taiwan. They'll be sending special forces to take out, high-ranking officials. They're going to be doing a lot of tactics. And don't forget, China has been training for this for years. Taking back Taiwan is a number one priority for them. So they have been training this for years. They will be doing a blockade of Taiwan. They will be doing surgical strikes. They will be taking out facilities. They will be landing all over Taiwan with helicopters and landing ships. So you see, they have all of this planned way before. And all of these Western papers who think that China's going to be dying on the beach like Normandy, they're going to all land on the beach and there's going to be masses of killings on the beach. I mean, that is not like how modern war is fought. They've probably been watching the film Saving Private Ryan or something. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. This is not how modern wars are fought. So as a summary, they have now realized with this Pelosi trip to Taiwan that they cannot trust the Americans anymore. They know that Americans would get involved in any Taiwanese Strait issue or any kind of war in over Taiwan. So they will be preparing for the worst, and the worst it would be a war with the United States itself. So this means that a lot of more money will be going into China's defense. They'll be making a lot more warships, submarines. They'll be working more with Russia. They'll be buying more arms from Russia, helicopters, submarines, technology from Russia. They'll be putting more money into research and development. And they'll be speeding up their nuclear deterrence as well. They'll be making more nuclear bombs, hypersonic missiles, and China will basically be speeding up their military build-up because of this. And the West has got it all to blame for themselves. If they left China alone, if they kind of left China and Taiwan to deal with it peacefully, China is all about trade. They want to trade with people. They don't want to go to war with people. They want to do this peacefully. And all America is doing is antagonizing the Chinese, antagonizing the region, and all this is doing is just pushing the Chinese to build more weapons. And you've seen China's manufacturing capacity. China is the factory of the world. So imagine how many missiles, how many airplanes and how many tanks, how many ships they can build very, very quickly. And they have been building their navy over the past 10 years, and you can see how many ships they have built over the past 10 years and how many planes they have built over the past 10 years. And all of this is just going to speed up now, and they have realized they will have to fight the United States, and if they're going to win in any way, they're going to have to build a very, very good army, a very good navy, and a very good air force. So they'll be doing that right now, and they're just going to speed everything up, and they're going to be putting a lot more money into the defense. Number 6, climate change. So China has cut ties with the US on a number of critical issues, which I'm going to go into a bit more detail. And one of the main things is they have cut climate change talks. And recently, I think today, the Congress, United States Congress, has agreed a $500 billion climate change bill. $500 billion. And where they're going to get that from if they cannot have any partnership with China? And like I said earlier in the video, to make wind turbines you need rare earth minerals. To make solar panels, and these are specific materials that are made in China itself as well, especially in the Xinjiang area. So they have to work with China when it comes to climate change. And China has got the biggest amount of solar panels in the world, biggest amount of wind power in the world, and they have some of the best hydropower units in the world as well. So if America wants to work with China when it comes to climate change and global warming, then he's got to work with China, because if America wants to build its own wind power and solar panels, again, things are going to be very, very expensive, and it's not going to be value for money. And Biden's green change is going to fail instantly. So they need China when it comes to climate change, and China knows this, and this is why China has cancelled climate change talks with them. And you can see in the beginning of the video, the fact that Blinken brought up climate change in his speech really does mean that it's affecting the United States badly, severely, because otherwise they would not even mention it. China has done 8 countermeasures, which I've shown you in the start of the video. So again, this is going to be very, very hurtful to the United States, especially the climate change stuff. And this is Biden's baby, to be honest, because he promised he would go green when he came into power. He promised that to the people, and his green vision is going to fail completely if he doesn't get China involved. And this is one of the global warming effects that's affecting the United States. More human remains surface at shrinking Lake Mead. And you can see Lake Mead here with satellite images between July 2000 and July 2022. And you can see huge amounts of water which has disappeared. And you can see northern part of Lake Mead is completely gone. You can see rocks now. You can't even see the water. And this is how bad Lake Mead has gone, and it's going to disappear within, I would probably give it another year or maybe 2. And this is going to be a huge issue for the United States. So global warming is real in the United States, and if they don't follow climate change, things like this will just get worse. Number 7, drug and crime, including fentanyl. So a couple of actions that China has taken is basically they're going to stop cooperation with the United States when it comes to drug trafficking, drugs, and crime in general between the two countries. And this is America having issues, basically, especially with fentanyl. Fentanyl caused over 100,000 deaths in the US this year, and you can see claimed more than 100,000 lives in the United States in the past year. And this is a huge amount of people that are dying. And don't forget, over 1 million people that are being overdosed in America who haven't died, but if you overdose, then you are basically messing around with your body. It can't be very good for your body to have an overdose, and once you have an overdose once, you're never the same again. You will always have kidney, liver, heart issues for the rest of your life, mental health issues. There's a lot of problems. So there is a huge problem with drugs in America, and fentanyl is one of the most dangerous drugs you can get. And even though the Chinese are probably not selling fentanyl directly to the United States, a lot of the raw materials required to make fentanyl, and fentanyl is being made in US labs and Mexican and South American labs, but most of the raw materials that you need to make fentanyl is probably ordered from China very cheaply. And this is where United States needs Chinese help to shut these factories down, to stop sending raw materials to American labs or South American labs and things like that. So this is why they need China's help. And suddenly China basically said, you know what, we're not going to help you, deal with all of these drug issues yourself. So this is a problem happening in the United States. This is not a problem happening in China. So this means that US needs China more than the Chinese needs US. And this is a major problem, and this is just going to get worse. If they don't have Chinese help, this means that more goods will go into United States, more goods will go into South America to make more fentanyls and fentanyl labs. These are, without Chinese help, things could go out of control, and this would mean more people getting into fentanyl, more people getting hooked on fentanyl, and more people dying, and more people overdosing. So it's just an ongoing effect, to be honest. Number 8, sanctions on Pelosi. So as you can see, this news article here, which is very racist and very negative towards China, it says Communist China places sanctions on Pelosi and her family. So this is one of the actions China has taken against Pelosi and her family. You might think that, it's not really a big deal, but it is a big deal when her family, her husband, her son has got a lot of interest in Hong Kong, a lot of interest in Taiwan as well. And once China reunifies with Taiwan island, then all of these interests that the Pelosi family have in Taiwan will be gone once after reunification. So this could have huge effects on them. Number 9, de-dollarization, the speed up of it. So, China is now gonna, assume that, very strongly assume that America would get involved in any issue in the Taiwanese Strait. They will probably do to China what they did to Russia, in terms of place heavy sanctions, take away all the foreign reserves, actions against the central bank, and take away all of the assets. So there's going to be huge implications for the Chinese economy if all of this happens. So China now, one of the other things it's doing is de-dollarization. They are getting rid of all of their dollars. And one way they're getting rid of their dollars is they are building up infrastructure all around the world and using the dollars to build infrastructure, build the BRI. And once the infrastructure is built, they basically make money using the Chinese yuan. They lend money using the US dollar to build these infrastructure projects. And once they're finished building, transport is being basically gets paid in Chinese yuan, and trade is being done in Chinese yuan. So they're winning. This is one way to very quickly get rid of US dollars, which is what they're doing. They're also stopping a lot of investments in around Europe and America. They're pulling out a lot of investments from there. They recently had a meeting with all of their central banks to discuss de-dollarization and how they're going to get rid of all of the risks associated with getting rid of all the foreign reserves and things. So China is taking steps to get rid of all of the dollars. They realize that US is not a country to be trusted. They are pushing their relationship with Russia to build a multipolar world with Russia. And back in the day, they trusted the United States when President Nixon went to China to build relationships with China, because they realized back then China is not a country to be messed around with. They pushed the Chinese to their peril, underestimated the Chinese in the Korean War, underestimated the Chinese in the Vietnam War, and America basically lost both of those wars. And they realized China is not a country to be messed around with, so they decided to make friends with China. And one of the conditions China had, or the only condition China had, is basically America must realize that Taiwan is part of China, is one, and that's why they signed the One China policy. So back then China did not really have much love for the Soviet Union, mainly because the Soviet Union took a lot of land away from China. Places like Vladivostok used to be Chinese, and this was part of the 100-year humiliation when the second Opium War, when China had a Opium War with the British and also the Europeans as well. And the Russian took advantage and took a huge piece of land from the Chinese, took huge, and they have not really given it back. So the Chinese were not very happy with the Soviet Union back in the day, so they were quite happy joining forces with the Americans, and but they only had that one condition for Americans to realize that Taiwan was part of China. And they signed the Shanghai Communiques, and they signed the deal. They were happy. The Chinese were happy. The Americans were happy because they had a really good ally to fight the Soviets. And this was one of the reasons Soviets lost the Cold War, because as soon as China joined forces with the Americans, the Soviet put a lot of resources along the border with the Chinese. As you know, they share a huge border with the Chinese, and they spent a lot of money along the border with the Chinese. So this is why one of the reasons why Soviet lost the Cold War. They were just stretched out too much around the world. And they didn't really have much of an economy. As you know, the West had a very good economy, especially with the banking system and stuff. But the Soviet Union was mainly run using gas and oil. And at the time, there was a huge crash in oil prices, and this is what caused the Soviet Union to crash. But back then, Chinese and the Soviets did not really get along, mainly because of the land that the Soviets took from the Chinese, and they did not really get along. But recently, they have basically solved their issues with land, the Chinese and the Russians. They have solved their issues with territory. Even though the Chinese have not got their territory back, they look at the long term and what they can gain from having a relationship with Russia. And what they can gain from Russia as a relationship is way, way better than they would had if they had the land, for example, because there are so many benefits of basically working with Russia. So as you can see, Russia has got huge amounts of raw materials, oil, gas, minerals, rare earths. Plus, Russia has got access to the northern sea route via the Arctic, which is China is working with Russia with. Russia is a very good friend to work with against the West and the United States, NATO. So working with Russia brings so many benefits, and this is why China looks at the long term when they look at countries and look at relationships. And China was happily gave away land to Russia in order to build up relationships with Russia, and basically they knew that Americans cannot be trusted, and America right now is the real enemy for China. And even though I can honestly tell you that 10 years ago when I actually traveled to China, a lot of Chinese were in very, very good opinion. They had very good opinions of Americans back then. A lot of Chinese were admiring the American culture, and and a lot of schools were opening up all over China teaching American English, and Chinese people watching Hollywood movies, they loved it. They loved the American culture, and I can tell you for a fact they loved the American culture when I was there. And everything changed when Trump came in power. He started this real anti-Chinese rhetoric, and everything changed, and all these Chinese around the world started getting treated like shit. A lot of violence against them. A couple of my friends got beaten up. One of my friends got put into a coma. So Trump started this rhetoric, anti-Chinese rhetoric, and ever since then, the Chinese have been falling out of favor of the Americans, and they've realized it's just all a sham. It's just all fake, and they really do not like the way Americans are. When I say Americans, I don't mean American people. I'm talking about the politicians. The Senate, the Congress, Biden, basically the people in power, in charge, and they really don't like the way they are kind of going around being untrustworthy and stuff. And the Chinese are basically falling out of love out of Americans now. And every Chinese person I speak to nowadays, they have no admiration left for the United States anymore. They used to love the United States, they used to love the American culture, but not anymore now. They have seen America's true colors, and I can tell you for a fact that this is not something they want to be. And now if you go around China, they are embracing their own culture. They are getting rid of a lot of American culture that was being around in their cities and stuff, and they're just knocking it all down now. If you go to shopping malls, used to be a lot of American brands everywhere, American posters everywhere. Now if you go to shopping malls, you'll see a lot of Chinese brands, you'll see a lot of Chinese advertisements, posters. Basically they have got rid of a lot of American culture in a lot of American Chinese cities, and this is the problem. This is what the American leadership has caused. Number 10, finally, China to speed up reunification process with comprehensive action as it ramps up military readiness against Pelosi's Taiwan visit. And I'm going to make a very, slight prediction. I'm going to say 2024 is going to be the time when China will reunify with island of Taiwan. Mainly for a couple of reasons. Number one reason is basically the DPP party is up for re-election, and they will probably win again. And I know they will win because what the DPP party has been doing is they have been lowering the age limit for people that can vote in Taiwan, and they have majority of the youngsters vote. And these youngsters, they have been brainwashing, like they've been brainwashing in Hong Kong and stuff. They don't really teach Chinese history in Hong Kong. So the same way, a lot of these kids that were brought up in Taiwan, they are being brought up as Taiwanese, not Chinese. So they are being basically brainwashed from a young age. And a lot of these kids who have been brainwashed for years, 10, 20 years, what they're doing, they're lowering the age limit now, so you can vote when you're younger now in Taiwan. And DPP party, when they came into power last time, a lot of the voters were young people. A lot of the older generation that that live in Taiwan, they actually want a reunification with the Chinese mainland. The Kuomintang party wants reunification with Chinese mainland. So it's mainly the youngsters who don't feel that they're like Chinese, that don't feel that they are Taiwanese. And this is why President Xi said he will basically make sure Taiwan reunifies as part of mainland, because he is not going to send this problem to the next person in charge, because he does not want to lose another generation. Because as each generation goes by, these Taiwanese youngsters are going to be more and more feeling like they're Taiwanese and less they are Chinese. And so that's a danger. If you leave it too long, these the people who live in Taiwan, they will feel more and more distance away from China, and that's a danger really. And so I feel that China will want to do this sooner rather than later. And 2024 is the reason. So DPP party is up for re-election, and if they win, China is not going to stand for it, because they know that if they win 2024, they will always win, because they'll always have these youngsters' votes, and they will never come off power. So China will probably take some action then. And another reason 2024 is when the US election is going to take place, and it sounds like it's going to be a Republican win. Democrats are going to be completely kicked out. I believe Biden has screwed things up so badly. Everyone's just going to vote for any Republican, whether it's going to be Trump, whether it's going to be Mike Pompeo, who knows. And if Mike Pompeo comes into power, whether it's Trump or Mike Pompeo, one of the two will become president of the United States. And I believe they will take steps calling for Taiwan to be independent. And you can see Mike Pompeo is very much vocal in basically wanting Taiwan to be a separate country and wanting Taiwan to be independent. And I believe America will take steps if Trump comes into power or Mike Pompeo comes into power, and they will try and kind of cause trouble. And I feel that China will be forced to take action around 2024 when these two come into power again. So this is my prediction, 2024. When China will kind of try and speed up their reunification. So for the next 2 years, what China's going to do, they're going to be building up their military. They're going to be making sure they de-dollarize, making sure they get rid of all of their assets abroad. They're going to make sure they take away all of the funding from the central banks. So they will basically prepare for the next 2 years, prepare for all of these sanctions wars that's going to be coming their way, prepare for any military hot war that's going to be coming their way. So you can guarantee in 2 years China will be ready for this, and I'm pretty sure that they will reunify in 2 years successfully. So let me know what you guys think. Before I finish the channel, I just want to go through a few other stories. Zelensky wants talks with China. So I found this quite ridiculous. I mean, seriously, this guy, has he not finished begging to the rest of the world? I mean, China knows this guy is a bit of a puppet. He's going around the world begging for money, begging for weapons, and he gets standing ovations from every single country and Congress. Now he wants to talk to China, and China does not forget. They do not have, one thing about the Chinese, they do not forgive and forget very easily. Once you insult the Chinese once, that's it. You basically lost a friend for life. And Zelensky basically insulted the Chinese by kicking out Chinese investments when it came to MotorSwitch. And MotorSwitch was basically a Chinese funded defense company. China paid billions into MotorSwitch, which is a Ukrainian company, and that company was about to go down, so the Chinese came in and saved it, and they obviously started making loads of orders, and Chinese companies and Chinese defense contracts were buying a lot of weapons and military stuff from MotorSwitch, and the Americans were not happy with it, so they asked Zelensky to basically do something. So Zelensky basically kicked out all the Chinese investments from MotorSwitch, and he nationalized MotorSwitch. And the Chinese were not very happy with that, because Zelensky did as what Biden wanted him to do. So Chinese were not very happy, and all of these investors obviously lost a lot of money. They're not got anything back. They're not got any money back, and they're talking about around 10 billion or something. And the funny thing is, MotorSwitch was one of the first companies or factories that got bombed by the Russians. So Russians have not bombed any Chinese investments in Russia at the moment, or in Ukraine, I mean. And they are working with the Chinese, and basically Chinese gave them the go-ahead. They said, you know what, just bomb MotorSwitch. It's not ours anymore. They've nationalized it. So one of the first thing the Russians did, they bombed MotorSwitch factory. So nationalizing the company has not really done Zelensky any good. Not only has he lost China as a friend, but he also lost MotorSwitch as well. And MotorSwitch was making Ukraine a lot of money. And if they left it in Chinese hands, you can guarantee MotorSwitch would still be running today. They would not, Russia would not touch any Chinese investments. So it basically just shows they made a big mistake, really. Anyway, Zelensky now wants to talk with China, and he wants to directly speak with China's President Xi, and talk to him about pressuring Russia. This is the worst moment for him to be talking to President Xi, and for him to be pressuring Russia, because all of this stuff that's happened with with Taiwan, and especially this has actually strengthened relationship with Russia, and they are not even going to bother picking up the phone when it comes to Zelensky, because they know he's a puppet. He's a puppet being run by the neocons, Victoria Nuland, and the American admin, and the Chinese are not going to even listen to this guy. And this guy has basically run out of friends in the West, and you can see a lot of articles coming out in the West. Amnesty International has gone against him, and there's a lot of New York Times and a lot of other American publications have gone against him now. They're basically finger pointing. It's all Zelensky's fault. So he's losing a lot of friends in the West. The money is being dried up. The weapons are being dried up as well. So he's getting really, really desperate, and he's now calling out to the Chinese to help him. So where was he when it comes to MotorSwitch? I mean, if he actually had some balls, he would have said no to America when he came to MotorSwitch. He would have said, no, this is we need this investment for MotorSwitch with the Chinese investment. I'm not going to kick them out. So he did it because he's a puppet. Whatever America tells him to do, he does. And this is why China's not going to give him any sort of time, because China did not forget the past. And once you piss off the Chinese once, that's it. You're not going to get a second chance. Taiwanese envoy invites German MPs to visit Ireland. So you can see the Germans, the leadership, they really, I don't want to use the word stupid, but they really are stupid. They're falling for the trap. The trap is de-industrialize Germany, make Germany poor, and they're falling for the trap. And America was, or the USA was very, very worried about Germany's relationship with Russia. They were worried that, you know, they're building a very close relationship and they're not going to need American influence anymore, American army, American power. So what they did, they wanted to make sure they break the relationship with Russia, and that's what they've done, and they've fallen for the trap. And now, instead of being reliant on Russia, now Germany is now reliant on the United States for LNG and stuff. And who would you rather be reliant on? Would you rather be reliant on Russia, or would you rather be reliant on the devil, United States? You know, I'll let you guys answer that. So right now you can see Germans, how they're struggling, how the economy is struggling. They hardly got any gas right now, and they're going to really struggle when it comes to winter, because most of their energy is natural gas. They've shut down most of the nuclear power plants. They're starting to start up a lot of the coal power plants. Germans are really struggling. The industry is really struggling as well. So we'll see how the Germans do. But it seems like if the Germans basically start messing around with the Chinese and start messing around with China's red lines with Taiwan, then things can get even worse for the Germans. I really advise they don't go there. So the British politicians are also looking to go to Taiwan, and Liz Truss, which I predicted was going to be the next Prime Minister, I predicted she was going to be the next Prime Minister ever since I started the channel way back in February. And you can go back to my old videos, you can see one about Liz Truss, and I said she's going to be the next Prime Minister. This is because I hear a lot of rumours and whispers in the corridors, in the elevators, and I hear people talking, and I'm 100% sure she's going to be the next Prime Minister, and I've been saying that from day one, and I have a lot of inside information, so I know she's going to be one. So she has said some really nasty things about China, and once she becomes Prime Minister, I can guarantee you one of the first things she's going to do is send a delegation to Taiwan, and she's just going to, she's going to be a million times worse than Boris. This woman's going to bring down Britain, and I can guarantee it. The Lithuanians are also doing the same thing. Lithuanians are basically the United States Chihuahua country. They've only got 3,000 people living in Lithuania. Yet, Lithuania's biggest problem now is Russia. It's not China. Yet Lithuania is now going around halfway around the world to piss off the Chinese. I mean, seriously, have a brain, guys. Have a brain. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate listening to my video. I know it's a long one today, but hopefully it's quite educational. You don't need to watch it all at once. You can watch it, whenever you're free, or put some headphones on when you're at the gym or going for a run. You don't need to see my face. You can just listen to my voice. Talking about my voice, I have 24k subscribers. But my missus has actually got 750k subscribers or 750k followers, and she's actually very, very good. But her followers are basically follow her for her looks, to be honest, and she's very good at makeup as well. But I use my voice instead. People don't need to see how I look like, but we make a good combination. She has the looks, I have the voice, so that's why we make a great couple. So thanks again for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, share if you can. Don't forget you can join my Patreon. You can buy me a coffee, you can join my locals, whatever you want to do to help support the channel. It would be absolutely amazing. If you can't, then don't worry. Just you guys listening to the video and subscribing or liking, whatever you can, or just commenting would be a great help for me. Thanks for everything, guys. I have missed you. I am now back, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care for now.